welcome back to my channel. My name is Rachel from Rach Elizabeth Artist, and today's video I wanted to kind of just do more of like a draw and chat and talk a little bit about running or building an art business alongside a part-time or full-time job, and kind of my experiences with it, where I'm taking it, how I started, how I managed to like balance them both, and how I'm sort of slowly transitioning more towards full-time art and moving out of my job. So that's what I want to talk about in today's video, because I feel like a lot of artists and creatives are in a similar position. So yeah, this is a piece that I'm currently working on. It's a tutorial, so I'm really excited about this one. It's a mom and baby chimp. I wanted to do another wildlife piece because I've been doing so many commissions recently that it's nice to just kind of take a step back and work on something that I really want to work on. So yeah, okay, let's get started. So yeah, I'll give you a little bit of a background about my journey as an artist. So art has always been something that I've been almost like drawn to. I don't know if there's any other artists listening to this who can resonate, but for me, it's almost like it's a need. I can't not do it. I would spend hours and hours as a child just sitting and drawing, usually on my grandparents' like floor, watching kids programs after school, or staying up like pretty late when I shouldn't be, when I have school the next day, to draw. Or getting in trouble in class because I'm not listening and I'm just doodling. So it's always been something that like I'm just drawn to and I can't help it. I have some people in my family who are quite creative. So my dad can draw, my nan can draw, my granddad can draw. I remember when I was younger and back in the UK, my granddad taught me a little bit about watercolor. I am hopeless at watercolor, but he tried. We would go up to a place called the Lake District, and which is essentially what it sounds like. It's a district of mountains and lakes. I spent a lot of my childhood there, and we would go out on a drive and go and sit somewhere with a really nice view, and we would just like paint or draw, and it was really, really nice. And then kind of similar with my nan as well, I would basically draw stuff and then give it to her to paint, to be like, oh, here you go, I drew a flower, will you paint this for me? And she did. So, you know, I've always had a very, very supportive family when it comes to my art, and it was that was originally what I wanted to do. When I was a kid, I'd say I want to be an artist when I grow up, but then, you know, the practicality of it, and you know, oh well, you know, maybe go to university, do a degree, get a job, and then like maybe do it on the side kind of thing. So that's what I did. My background is in psychology, and I went to university to do psychology, and then after that I didn't really know what to do, but there was an area of psychology that I really liked, which was behavioral science. So I did a master's in that, and that brought me to my current profession, which is a therapist for children with autism, which I love. It's very fulfilling, but it's always been at the back of my mind. Like I want to do my art. That's always been at the back of my mind ever since I can remember. And I think I was maybe midway through my master's degree, and I thought, you know what, this is something that I just keep coming around to, and it's not going to go away. So I decided, okay, I'm going to start an art business, and we'll see how it goes. When I started, I had absolutely no idea what I was doing. Not a clue. I didn't even do commissions at that point. I kind of dabbled in a lot of different things. I did collages, I did architecture drawings, what else did I do? Landscapes with acrylic and oils and pastel, all sorts of different stuff. It took me a little while to kind of figure out my style. I naturally started to gravitate towards colored pencils and animal portraits. But the first piece of art that I ever sold was on eBay, and I sold a collage piece that I did of Paris I sold it for like £5. I was thrilled. I was so happy. But that's where it started. And then when I started to move into colored pencil and I started getting people asking me for commissions, and when I say people asking me for commissions, I mean like three or four people. I sold them for maybe £30 at the time. So that's kind of where that started from. And I tried markets, which I mentioned in another video, did not go how I expected them to go. And then after a couple of years, I just felt really frustrated because I was like, I don't really know what I'm doing. This isn't going how I expected it to go. I hired a coach for a month before me and my partner moved to Canada. And one big takeaway that actually really helped my business was Facebook groups. He kind of told me about Facebook groups, and it was a game changer for me, because if you think about it this way, as a pet portrait artist, my audience is dog owners. How many dog related Facebook groups are there on Facebook? There's endless. There's so many. So that's what I did. I joined those, and I got some commissions from those. But I was a little inconsistent with it, and as I mentioned in my previous video, my pricing, or that he set my pricing at, I was so uncomfortable about it, so I didn't really put my art out there that much. And then I was really occupied with the move to Canada. So we moved to Canada in 2020, February 2020, where everybody knows what happened around that time. So obviously I had a lot of time. That was when I thought, okay, I'm really going to put all my effort into my artwork. So I did. And how I started was I joined a lot of Facebook groups, I think they were like more US based, and obviously some local ones. And I started doing a dog of the day series. So I draw a dog, only like really, really small. It didn't take me long, it took maybe 2 or 3 hours. And I would post them in Facebook groups. And that is where I got a lot of commissions come from. And that's kind of where a lot of my work has continued to come from, is from those Facebook groups. Now, like fast forward almost 6 years since I first started my business, I'm at a point where I'm starting to get consistent like referrals or return customers. So that's kind of where I'm at, but it took me a long time to get there. So when it comes to your art journey, I think where a lot of the feelings of being disheartened comes from is like, you'll see people who maybe started 6 months ago and they're already super successful, or like YouTube is covered with, oh, how I went from $0 to $100,000 in a year. And like, I mean, that's amazing. That's incredible for them. But you don't know where they started from. You don't know their background. I mean, they might tell you a little bit, but sometimes, it's very easy to kind of get caught up in that feeling like you should be further along than you are. And believe me, I get it. I've felt like that for a long time. But right now, so after, I think it was about 6 months or so in Canada, I went back to work as a therapist. And, it was great, but all I could think about is I just want to work on my artwork all the time. That was all that went through my head. But obviously you're starting a life in a new country. I felt like, no, I need to really focus on a good job and an income. And, so that's what I did. And my art kind of took a bit of a sideline. And then again, I kept coming around to, I want to focus on my artwork, and then going round and round in these circles. And it was very, very frustrating, because I would get to a point where I'd be working on my art and I'd need to go to work, and I'd start to get like frustrated or resentful. And I didn't want to continue like that. So I reached a point where I thought, you know what, I've got to make a decision here, because this keeps coming around, and it's not going to go away. This is what I love. This is what I feel like my, purpose is, I guess you could say. So what I've done now, and this has been a big decision for me, I reduced my hours again at work, and this was about a couple of months ago now, to a point where, like, you know, I can still get by, but I thought, you know what, I don't want to be another 5 years down the line and wishing I had taken this time or taken this leap to just focus on my artwork. You know, I wanted to be in a better position with it, and I know that it's what I want to do. It was a scary decision, but I feel like now I'm at a much better place than I was 3 years ago with my art. Like, if I'd have just decided, no, I'm not gonna go back to work, I'm just gonna focus on my artwork, which I know there's probably people listening where you're like, well, I'm not in that position. Maybe you have a family, maybe you have kids, maybe you have a much less flexible full-time job. And what I would say is the biggest thing that has helped me is prioritizing my art and prioritizing my time. So if I've been really busy with work, what I will try and do is I'll try and set aside, even if it's an hour, hour and a half, or even if it's like 45 minutes, no matter what else like needs to be done, whether there's emails I've got to get back to, like, people will cope. If they've waited a day for an email reply, they'll cope another half an hour, or dishes to be done, or laundry or whatever. But to me, like, my art journey and my work is more important than a few bowls in the sink. So that's what I did. I started making my art a priority. And then with my job, what I have now started doing is, instead of trying to fit my art around my job, I've started scheduling in days or times in the day where I'm like, this is dedicated to my art. It's non-negotiable. Well, to an extent, obviously things come up, but it's non-negotiable. And then I will fit everything else around it. Again, I know, like, I'm in a position where, like, I have the flexibility to do that, and I'm very grateful for doing that. But if there is any way that you are able to do that, I highly recommend that, because then it's like, it makes your work a priority. And, you know, if this is something that you love, if this is something that you want to build, it has to be some kind of priority. It can't take last place, otherwise you're gonna get nowhere. Believe me, I did that, and I got nowhere. It didn't make a difference. I just felt stagnant. I felt like I was just spinning my wheels, essentially. So that's kind of where I'm at now. And it can feel like, well, I'm not getting anywhere. I'm not where I want to be yet. But if I look at it long term, what I'm seeing now is that actually I have made a lot of progress. The biggest progress that I've made is that I'm now working 60-70% on my art and about 40 to 30% on my job, which that ratio used to be the complete opposite of like maybe a year or so ago. So even things like that, that's still progress. Like I said, with my commissions, I'm getting referrals and repeat clients that never used to happen. My art style and my art skill level has improved. I have a better vision as to where I want my art to go. So all of these things are still big wins, and you know, you want to make sure that you celebrate those. And another thing that really helps is having a vision for where you want your business to go. Now, this can take time. I had no clue. All I knew is that, like, oh, well, I want to be an artist. I didn't know how. I didn't know like what that would involve. I didn't know what I wanted to sell. I had no idea. It's taken me a long time to develop that. And I would only say probably in the past year, well, actually, maybe the past 6 months, I've actually reached a point where I'm like, I know exactly what. I just realized that I've been drawing and you can't see what I am drawing. I am so sorry. I'm drawing the top of the chimp's head. What was I talking about? Oh yeah, having a vision. It took me a really long time to figure out what that is. But now, like in the past 6 months, I've really reached a point where I know exactly where I want to take my art. I don't necessarily know how. I have, I'm very lucky to have been able to build connections, which is another thing. Connect with people in the art community, because you don't know what opportunities could come your way. And I've had so many incredible opportunities and friendships develop from doing this. So that's a huge thing that I would suggest that you do. And it's allowed me now to, when you have a vision, it's easier for you to kind of figure out what fits with that vision and what doesn't. So for example, like if something comes along and you have a vision for your art and it doesn't fit with that vision, or it doesn't serve you, or if it doesn't add value, or if it doesn't add value for you, then it's easier to kind of look at it and see, you know what, this doesn't serve me and I'm not going to take it on, right? But one thing I want to say as well, I was reading a book by Tim Grover called Winning. I love that book. I'm a huge reader. I read every morning. And when I'm usually doing my art, or when I'm going for a walk or driving to work, I will have some kind of podcast on. I get so much from it. Anyway, I was listening to this podcast and he said, don't manage your time, manage your focus. And this really resonated with me because it makes so much sense. We're all trying to manage our time, but if you set aside time for a certain task and you're scrolling your phone, or you're like, oh, I'll just go make a coffee, or I'll just clean up this bowl, or I'll just vacuum really quick, then, well, it doesn't really matter that you managed your time, because you didn't get the thing done in that time that you wanted to do. So managing your focus, I love that. And how I do that is by I set an alarm on my phone for like maybe half an hour to an hour, not usually more than that, because otherwise after that then my focus will drift. But yeah, for around that time, and I'll set it for different tasks. So, okay, I'm going to do an hour of catching up on emails, or writing content, or, cleaning, doing what I need to get done. And that works really, really well for me. It keeps me focused because the time that I set aside for myself isn't too long. So obviously don't set like 4 hours to yeah, you don't want to set like 4 hours and, try and force yourself to sit down for a huge amount of time and get loads of stuff done. I mean, if that works for you, great. But I know personally for me, I will lose focus after that amount of time. I need a break. So I'll usually go for a walk or something. But it helps because I'm quite a chaotic person, I guess. So I have a lot of ideas for things, and I constantly feel like I should be doing everything all at once. So if I can set aside specific times for specific things, it really helps me get out of that kind of mindset. Yeah, so that's kind of a strategy that helps me. Okay, so the last thing that I wanted to bring up, and I feel like this is probably the most important, is your self-belief. This is huge when it comes to trying to build any kind of, business with your art, or, well, anything in life, really. I have a few videos where I talk about some strategies about how to build your confidence and how to build your self-belief. But the biggest thing, and I noticed this as well, I noticed my thought patterns. So a lot of the time, especially when you're doing something that's a little scary, you might notice your thoughts kind of going towards well, what if this happens? What if that happens? What if I don't make any sales? What if I end up with no money? Or, all these like horrible, drastic things. And it can really put you off, and you end up going back to what's comfortable. This is all you're going to do, because I did this for 4 years, well, 3 or 4 years with my job. This is what I did. I went back to what was comfortable, and I got nowhere, and it just increased I guess it increased my frustration, because all I was focused on was the obstacles and what might go wrong and what happens if this goes wrong. And then what that did is it just made me go back into my comfort zone. That's exactly what I did. I went back into my comfort zone, and that's what I'd been doing for the past, say, about 4 years, going round and round in circles with my job, because I was scared to leave, because I had all these ideas that, well, all the things that could go wrong. And so, but I have a stable income here, so I'll just keep that. And that's basically the situation that I've been in for quite a while, until I got to the point where I was able to take the time to really work on my perspective and look at what could actually go right. Like, maybe what happens if it does work out? What happens if you are able to create the vision that you have for yourself? And that is how it allowed me to take that step to reduce my hours down at work and leave some clients. And like, yes, it's scary. And yes, I don't necessarily, I have no guaranteed income, but that's what it is. Like, as a business owner, you're going to face those challenges. I still have a fairly, a stable-ish income, but it's lower than it was. And it's a little scary, but my belief in myself is so much higher because I'm trying to focus on the things that could go right. And when you focus on that, then you start to notice all the things that are working out for you. Like, I've had opportunities come up recently that I don't think I ever would have had, or things happening in my business, or more commissions come through without me advertising than I've ever had. And I would have missed these things, or I wouldn't have celebrated them as much, or I wouldn't have allowed them to increase my belief if I'd have just focused on all the things that weren't happening. So that's a key thing. And before we finish, I just want to touch on something really quick. So yeah, a lot of people are now trying to make businesses, or whether it's part-time or full-time, or just like a little bit of a side hustle with their creative outlet. It does not mean that their work or their art or whatever it is that they're creating is more valuable than yours. If you just want to keep it, if it's something that you love and you don't want to build it into a business, you just want to keep it as a hobby because you love it and it's your downtime, that doesn't mean that your work is less valuable than somebody that sells it. So, it can be very easy to get caught up in that and think, well, this person sells their work and, they made a business out of it, so their work is more valuable or is better. That's not true. That's not true. Everyone's creations and everyone's piece of art is just as valuable, and it has just as much meaning, and it matters just as much no matter what journey you are on. Whether you just do it, you want to keep it as a hobby, or whether you want to build it into a full-time career, it still matters and it's still valuable. And your worth as an artist is not based on that. So I wanted to kind of touch on that really quick before we finish, because I feel like it can be very easy to get caught up in that thinking, and think that, because you don't sell your work, or because maybe you want to work full-time, as an artist, but you're not quite there yet, like me. Or maybe you're in the process of starting a business, but you're not quite there yet. It doesn't mean that one person's journey is more valuable, or that they matter more, or that they're worth more, or that they're a better artist. It doesn't mean that. It just means they're at a different point in their journey. You are still an artist if you have a part-time job. You are still an artist even if you sell one piece of art per year. You are still an artist even if you don't want to sell your art. It doesn't matter. Your art within itself and your creativity is what's important. Okay, so I know that was probably a little bit of a long video. If you made it to the end, thank you for listening. But yeah, I hope that this was helpful, and honestly, I just hope that it gives you some encouragement to hear my journey, and hopefully maybe some parts of it resonate with you, or some parts of it, help you know that we all go through these challenges and that your vision is possible for you. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.